everyone. Welcome to the CA Automation Global User Community Webcast. Today we'll be having Anand Chauhan present, and I'm just going to get started right away by handing it over to you.
Thanks, Marie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So just the usual disclaimer, the roadmaps and just the what's new presentation here. So we'll start looking at basically what's new. My name's Anand Chauhan. Hello, everyone. Product manager on the automation team, primary responsible for CSO automation. On the line, we'll also have the development lead, Prasant Kangati, for CSO automation. So we'll be happy to take any questions as we go along in the chat window, and definitely we'll have ample time remaining towards the end to take any more questions you may have. So, and again, thanks for carving out some time today, to speak, to let us speak briefly about the new features in CSO automation 12.8.2, as well as just an overview of how server automation has evolved as a data center automation product, leading up to 12.8.2 that recently released in the last quarter. We'll also be looking at basically just progressively how we're taking it forward to solve, I would say, challenges that some of our customers had been facing, and service provider, enterprise customers, as well as partners who are really laser-focused to providing the best possible service on their available data center infrastructure as well, be it like, let's say, physical or even a virtual in a private cloud as well. So we'll cover some kind of an overview of server automation. We'll cover some of the primary use cases so we can just level set on what server automation can do. Then we dive into the recent release, 12.8.2, as well as some key themes of what we covered over the last year with 12.8.1 and 12.8 as well. Just a quick recap of that. We'll just look at some of the upgrade paths. I know there's, what do we support, GA, GA-1 releases, that's what we support. We'll touch upon that as well if we take any questions as we get to that point. And just lastly, we'll just round up with a quick set of community updates. Definitely would want to take this time to touch on some key community-related topics, updates, to better engage with you, gather your feedback. I know we have been engaged in the past through various mediums, like the customer validation maybe, or other mediums as well, through even support tickets which convert into enhancements. We always are connected through sprint reviews. I said we could take it up a level and see how we can better engage over various models, and absolutely take your feedback to see what we can do better, any webcast you want to do going forward as well. So with that, let's dive in. In fact, just a quick overview of what server automation can do so that we can level set and we can go into the features. So mainly what we saw actually over the years, this product has been in the market for about 5+ years, and we have definitely been evolving as the market evolved to actually start catering to basically moving from a traditional physical infrastructure based application servers to actually moving to virtual. This happened 5-10 years ago. It started. The last 5 has been pretty active in the space. So naturally, what we helped the IT firms or the service providers do is basically streamline their pace, at their own pace, at their own business plan, or the business own strategy. We work with them to basically minimize their risk, maximize IT investments by helping ensure that they can manage both the traditional as well as the virtual deployments. How did you go about doing it? I think the first question is, okay, that sounds great, but how did you go about doing it? We did it in many ways. I think that the main thing is naturally the whole standardizing the process. I mean, we saw a lot of scripts, tasks, schedules, a lot of these activities which were not repeatable in many cases. So we saw a lot of errors being occurring because of the process was not repeatable. The time to actually build a server, we have seen cases which definitely went from about, believe it or not, about 2 to 3 months to actually less than 2 days or even less than 2 hours in some cases. So that's really where we helped in some of these areas. Again, these are just the top few use cases or primary use cases, as I mentioned, that we saw where we really see server automation played a big role in actually really helping standardize the server deployments based on the organization policies. That could be the same template, right? You want to deploy into a production or let's say a test, or a development environment. You may have the same template, but maybe the underlying resources are different. So you standardize on them. You increase operational productivity. I mean, that can be done in many ways. I mean, automation is one of the factors, but then there's also the other places where, when you automate, you need to be understanding what you're automating. So the manual steps that were driven through the scripts, we actually looked at them, we normalized them, and basically make sure that you can even have a one-click deployment. by that end. You could have self-service. You could provide that to your end customer, or you could actually have it, on a scheduled basis through policies as well. So just basically through silent scripts or command line utilities and things like that. And lastly, I think the optimizing user infrastructure, I think that is so critical, right? I mean, you basically have production dev test. You cannot be using your premium storage for, let's say, a test deployment, but you want a similar experience for the end customer. So naturally, you could have resource pooling that you could have that can help you organize your resources up front so that when the end customer simply clicks on that button to basically deploy the server on, let's say, a VMware vSphere platform, or basically the resources are deployed to the right areas. So that was mainly the three main areas, just to recap, standardizing server deployment, increasing operational productivity, and optimizing user infrastructure is what the three key facets that sort of see. And even the enhancement as we go along, I mean, these are the core values or the core values that the product brings to the table. We try to align the enhancements that we pick and choose along those lines as well. So with that, let's get to the main meat of the topic. The main focus for this topic here is really what's new, right? What's new in server automation 12.8.2. Like I mentioned earlier, I did expand the scope a little bit. I said, this is our first webcast on 12.8 for the current quarter. So let me just go back and do a quick recap of the previous releases as well. So what I did is I just kind of encapsulated some of the key themes that we included as a part of 12.8 and beyond a little bit of 12.8 as well. In terms of 12.8.1 and 12.8.2. So the key themes we saw a lot of adoption for some of the key platforms. We saw, IBM Power VM, we saw VMware vSphere, absolutely. And then we saw customers actually directly connecting to the UCS manager as well for element managers like UCS. So what we maintain is we enhance support or feature capability on these key platforms. The usability enhancements, I'll give you some examples, but really what that second bullet covers here is the fact that as things progress, like I mentioned, the maturity of the market, the maturity of the product as it evolved, we naturally saw customers basically, the end customer or the end users ranging from, let's say, a couple of 50 to 100 to actually going to 1,000 plus. So naturally, as you start using the product, you have certain enhancement that you had to request, like for example, how do I better manage, let's say, 200 plus data stores? How do I better manage that? Some search capability as simple as that, some grouping. So we basically definitely listen to you in terms of the challenges that you face. One of the good forums that we started doing it recently in the past was log through support ticket and you try to convert it to a DAR. We further streamline that effort. Now you can simply go to the communities, log an idea. We're trying to do it on a monthly basis, but in 30 to 60 days, we respond to your feedback. We respond to your idea with basically our feedback as well. So we can definitely collaborate on that and see, what other usually enhancements we want to include. But for now, for this call, I'll definitely cover on some of those enhancements that we did, give you some background on them. And lastly, I think one of the core thing about automation here, server automation, is that it basically relies on some of these functionality, let's say on a client automation, to let's say, provision the, on bare metal, for example, or provision the software or application on top of an existing endpoint. So we want to make sure that we stay current on the related products, let's say CA client automation, CA process automation, or even the EEM, which is used for securing or which is used for helping you authenticate into the systems as well. So we stay current on that. So with that, I will go into the first set of theme here, which is the capabilities on the VMware vSphere platform. So starting with the first one, this is a key note. With the platforms that we support, we consistently stay maintain the platform currency, which means that we stay current on our platforms. Which means with vCenter 5.5, we certified that in a recent 12.8.2 release. So with 5.5. With basically 12.8.2, we support not only 5.5, but even the previous one, 5.1, as well as 4.1. So this point, we support these three versions of the vCenter. Then we started going into basically just some of the VMware specific usability, where there was administrators, basically certain set of customers who didn't want the end user to actually be using a vSphere client to access the systems. So basically, we actually had one of the launch VMware Web Console. This link can be accessed via server automation. So you log into server automation, and so the customers can basically just govern or secure access only to the server auto product, and customers can access it via that product as well. So that link also can be configured to be sent via email. But I've typically seen it basically used as from the administrative view as well. So next in line is here is a data store threshold configuration. This was actually introduced in 12.8.1. One of the key reasons behind this was one of the best practices that VMware recommended, VMware storage administrators recommended, was we should not, or the administrator should not basically crank it up or basically use the entire data store 100%. The recommendation was about 80% is what should be used, allocated, and beyond that, it should basically be kept open for other activities. So in that case, what this new configuration was added, where we can allocate it to some percentage of the total space. Beyond that, if we have any VMs that you basically want provision, they either would not get provisioned. If you do have other data stores, it definitely will roll over to that. If not, then it will not get provisioned. The warning is displayed. Again, it's an optional administrative configuration for the administrators. So the next thing here is, again, continuing the same theme of VMware vSphere platform enhancements. We had the static IP support. So in Server Auto 12.7, the release before what we were just talking here, so we had static IP. They were actually defined in network address pools. So while the static IP could be defined, in terms when the end user used to come and select the network pool, it was basically randomly selecting from the network pool. The recommendation or the requirement, the enhancement here is to actually let the end user select one IP from the pool. Sometimes these IPs have specific name. Like for example, what the scenario here was, we had a set of IPs they wanted to actually capture for, again, a DMZ environment versus like a non-DMZ environment. Maybe or even a test in a production if that's the other scenario, the example here. So based on that, they had a certain set of IPs they had allocated. So in here, they were really specific, like certain IPs they want to use for databases versus some other IP they want to use for setting the app server, and so on and so forth. So naturally, they want to have a specific IP. So that's what we extended with 12.8.1. This capability is available for the SSRM end user. So the next here is basically talking about just enhancing data store filtering options. This is the example I was giving you earlier in terms of usability. One of these customers had about 200 plus. I think at this point they're at about 500 plus data stores. And actually, they had, when you come in and you want to organize your resource pools, you want to see which data stores you want to organize and which resource pool at a certain point. So they asked for some other enhancements to data store filtering. Again, this is absolutely a customer request where they said, what about smartening even further your filtering capability? What about adding something like a minimum capacity or minimum available space? If I have that information, then I can better filter or organize my data store filters. So that was one of the things that they basically added at that point. The next in line is snapshot retention period. This is one of the one that actually we definitely were debatable because I think the request that came in was more about deleting snapshot outright. We did have a configuration where we were only allowing certain number of snapshot in the previous release. With 12.8.1, this configuration, again, an optional configuration, this really, beyond a certain time, this outright deletes the snapshot. This follows one of the enterprise policies. So there was a service provider customer, and they had been sending out notes to their tenants saying that, the snapshots will get deleted. But in spite of repeated notes, that policy was not enforced. So said, beyond that, let's say they sent out a policy for the snapshot would not be retained in 7 days. In good faith, they actually turned it on to 1 month. So if for some reason they're not able to, after repeated warnings, not able to cater to that, they can set this policy that the snapshot would eventually get deleted. So and so forth. I think it's just a behavior change in terms of how the customers started using. They already had a backup retention policy for that. So they already had a service which would replicate the snapshot retention at this point. So naturally, after this configuration, they saw a gradual move over to using the backup and retention, which is their best practice anyways, which is more safer than actually using snapshot, which can instabilize a VM. So it was a win-win both for the customer as well as their end customers as well. So that's some background on this enhancement. The next in line is actually going into the other enhancements. Like this time we're talking about, let's say, the IBM Power VM platform. We just started touching on this. We'll be expanding this extensively in the upcoming release of Server Auto 12.9. And I definitely would recommend you guys to sign up. We're going to open up our custom validation program for the community in a few weeks. So I'll definitely encourage that if you're interested in IBM Power VM or looking at some of the usability enhancements. But this was the first one that we covered. The first one on the list, allowing NIM boot. Basically, the background here is more about, the previous to this release, Server Auto 12.8.2, we actually allowed NIM boot and NIM client on the same subnet. So we allowed that, but as we started looking at some of the scenarios, especially with IBM Power VM being used in a production scenario, they saw that the NIM boot was in a different subnet than your NIM client, your endpoint, the VM endpoint that was getting created. So this basically allowed that kind of a configuration where you had the NIM boot and the NIM client or NIM master actually on different subnets. So that was what the enhancement was. Next in line is Cisco UCS platform. We supported 1.4 and 2.0 before this. We recently, basically with 12.8.1, we certified 2.1. We do have 2.2 on the backlog at this point. May not be part of the upcoming release, but if you definitely see a reason for why we should include, do reach out, and we'll be happy to see how we can plan for certification of 2.2 as well. So lastly on this list, on the slide here is about talking about the Oracle Solaris Zone support. Like the other platforms, I think one of the key things here was we wanted to restrict the CPU utilization. So the enhancement came through about how can you restrict CPU utilization to a defined percentage. So of course, the CPU only gets allocated up to a certain CPU cap. Again, it was a recommendation done by the Solaris admins, and that's how we basically got it in. And I think that's why it's important to kind of for us to collaborate, understanding your objectives, understanding your goals, how it's impacting. So some of these enhancements, as you saw in the 12.8.1 and 12.8.2, it definitely is customer driven. So we'd like to kind of hear from you and to see how you're using the product and see where we can benefit, and we'll be happy to accommodate some of these enhancements into our next release as well. So on that one, let's go to the next slide here. So now we're kind of going into the next theme here, which is usability enhancements. Starting with the first one, these are primarily enhancement of the reservation manager, also known as SSRM. The first one on the list, basically we talk about the Active Directory support. In previous to Server Auto 12.7 releases, we used to allow managing reservation by users. So you had to add a new set of users. This release, we allowed the Active Directory group not only to be managing the reservation, but if it's a Windows system, they get assigned as local admin groups for the Windows system as well. So you could actually assign users as well as groups to existing reservations, or actually add in new reservations as well. So next is governing the CPU memory combination. This one was interesting because I think this is kind of going in line with some of the service provider policies where they had a catalog. They had a catalog of systems which had pre-baked combinations. So you would say, you could basically only request, let's say, a 1. If you select a 1 CPU, you may only get 2 and 4 gig of RAM. And similarly, if you select 2 CPU, it may have 4, 8, 16. And if you have 4, then you basically get the premium slot. Then you have the 16 and 32 and so on and so forth. But really, this is what they're governing in the catalog. Before 12.8.2, even 12.8.1 and above, what we saw is that because we didn't have this configuration or didn't have this provision, there were some cases where the end customers were actually selecting some other combination, causing some billing issues in that service provider environment. And I think this is very valuable. I think the whole notion of having this the key 3 themes I mentioned about standardizing deployment, right? This is one of those key themes that kind of lines up to that. Like having this combination, if an end user comes in and they select, let's say, a 2 CPU, you can only have 4, 8. It basically is in line with your organization policies and governance of how you want to provide the systems, rather than having all different combination and permission combination of servers that you could provide. It's just better to organize and better to provision. And if you have billing and chargeback attached to it outside of these systems, then guess what? It is all in sync. So that was one of the reasons I think this benefits. We have definitely seen a lot of adoption of this particular feature as well after we introduced it, not only for the service provider, but even in the enterprise customers. The last on this list is about just talking about the on behalf of. I mean, naturally, this is one of the environments, or this is one of the scenarios where the customers had an IT, and they had developer admins, and they had developers. So the developer admins were the ones creating the virtual machines on behalf of the developers at times, and they wanted that level of, access to the system. So they basically said, how about instead of having some of these developers, or even some of these just end customers who are not developers, non-developer customers, they do if we can create on behalf of those users. Can we do that? Yes. So with this feature, absolutely. You can basically create reservations from templates or just VMs on behalf of another user in the system. So next in line is actually just about just going deeper into the product certifications, exactly what versions were supported with what release. So I'm just listing out the current versions. For example, 4.2 SP1 is what was released with Server Auto 12.8.2 in the last quarter, so we were current with that. There's a new version of process automation that recently released, 4.2.2. We are currently in plans of certifying it for the next release or the following release. So, but in general, I think we stay current on most of the releases which are released alongside or in the same time period as Server Auto releases. The next in line is client automation, which is again an essential or a core component for server automation. It is also called IT Client Manager or ITCM. So we have certified up to 12.8 CPO1 with 12.8.2. Before that, we had certified 12.5 SP1 C1 as well. So we have certified with both releases at this point. With EEM, we do package 8.4 in the last release. But we have certified with 12.5. So let's say you have other deployments, especially you've seen with EEM or Embedded Entitlement Manager that EEM is a common component. So it may still be that you have other CA products which use 12.5. We can definitely work with that. So if you install a new instance, if it's done the server automation with an existing EEM, you can absolutely integrate with it. So now we get into the upgrade paths. So upgrade considerations, upgrade paths here. This is something to be in the know. We have 12.7 SP1, so we do a GA-1 as a policy here. So we'll be supporting both 12.7 SP1, which was the last GA. The releases before 12.7 SP1 have been end of service. So 12.7 SP1 is the only active release at this point, which is in service beyond 12.8. So 12.7 SP1, we do support that in place upgrade to 12.8 SP2, and obviously we support upgrades from 12.8 and 12.8 SP1 as well. So next slide here. Actually, I did not cover all the enhancements. I was just giving a quick overview of basically all the key enhancements that we thought we should be covering on this call. More than happy to if you go through the release notes for each of these releases, 12.8, 12.8.1, or 12.8.2, if you find something that you have any questions for, we're here to help. Definitely you can ask it on the communities, or you could just reach out direct to me, and I'll definitely be happy to help you with that. Or if you want to have some more deeper dive, if you want to have a visual demo of any of these features, I'm more than happy to. We'll be happy to set up a call with you or have a community call maybe to actually go through some of those sessions as well. But this page just shows about the software note has more information about the features function as well. So lastly, I think we're just going to round up here mainly on the community updates, what's coming. That's a link to the C automation community. Definitely recommend you to just go and just follow that, mainly so that you can be tuned in on what updates or any announcements that we have for the product, or any best practice recommendations. Otherwise, we'll have sessions like that. The next week, actually, we have an office hours coming up. This is the one on October 30th, 9 a.m. US Eastern. Definitely recommend you join for any questions. We'll be here to answer any questions you may have related to the product use, or just any questions in terms of scenarios you want to share or ideas you want to share as well. So next one is just a FYI here. We have moved away from the DARs or the support issues, the old way of actually tracking enhancement requests. We highly recommend that you start using the community IDA or ideation. you just have to go to communities ideas and just log a quick points. We'll definitely reach out immediately to basically just get some quick feedback, and we'll make sure that we come back to you on what the analysis is of that idea as well. Definitely more than happy to take your feedback through that channel. And the next in line is the one I was mentioning earlier. We'll be introducing a custom validation program. This time we will be opening up. The past betas, we used to keep it close to our sort of key customers who are active or the ones we're delivering in a particular release. This time we're going to open it for the community. So we are working through that. Absolutely just a few benefits here. There are a lot more benefits. You have direct access to product management as well as development to influence the behavior or usability of certain features, right? Or you just influence the behavior of the product as well in certain ways. So, but aside from that, I think just the quick rundown of these points here, the main thing is we're going to have private community. So to not be open to the community, you just have to request access. You just quick sign up for the NDA or the non-disclosure agreement. Formalities taken care of. You just log into the private community, and then we'll be posting recordings for the upcoming sprint. So every month we have a sprint review or a demo. So we'll definitely be posting those demos there. We'll be posting the slides, or you take your feedback. We'll also be actually using the same community or the private community to actually open up even the ideas review session. We initially we used to keep it within the product team. We're going to open it up for discussion as well. So we'll review it, and we'll basically have some of these enhancements specifically requested by the community or during that session as well. And lastly, I think absolutely if you require early access to beta software, that's another place where I feel that will be valuable, where if you join it and if you feel that you want to actually take it in your labs, just get ready for, let's say, upgrade is one of the key reasons why you want to take it in your labs. I mean, otherwise, if you have features, you can actually go through demos, get a good idea of what that feature is doing. But if you want to actually validate upgrades, highly recommend it to take it in your labs. So if you need access to early beta software, this is another reason why you would want to sign up as well. So, mainly I'm just be happy to take any questions. We also have the development manager, like I said, Prasad Komati, so we'll be happy to take any questions at this point. If not, absolutely here to help. If you have anything, feel free to reach out, email, call, either way, or just the community. I think that's definitely the best channel for us to, to reach out to us and basically share your feedback. So with that, I'd like to see if there's any questions in the chat window or anything else you want to cover. Okay. So maybe if there are no other questions, then maybe thank you all for joining. Really appreciate your time. I think that should be it. Maria, is there anything else you want to cover?
No, that's it. We've got it covered, and I'll end the recording now. Thank you, Anand, for presenting.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.